Talk Show is brought to you by Health Plans, your Medicare plans, insurance solutions, and resource agency. We have a variety of plans and products that fit your needs, benefit requirements, and budget, with many low or no-cost premium plans, zero co-pays, and much more. Our licensed benefits advisor's priority is your health and well-being. Call us today and book your no-obligation consultation. 1-929-367-5269.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the Fitness Fab, and all the other channels with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. A topic that is very important, a topic that we might not have covered before. We've covered similar topics or different practices that touch on pain management, so on and so forth, and physical therapy, but we have not really talked chiropractic. And today I have with me Tom Waldorf, a physician who brings in a very different angle to chiropractic work, and it's really holistic, integrated, chiropractic work. And him and I, we were just having a discussion. We had some fun before this, and literally he does everything under his realm. His practice is very multi different techniques and different, approaches and different services that he has. So he'll tell us more about his practice and what he does. But also, before we get there, Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about your background, your history, and the world of chiropractic? We get us close to a definition of what that is.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Tom Waldorf. I have a clinic called Active Life Integrated Health. Our motto is a better life through motion. We don't move. We don't have a life. And in order for us to have a life, we got to start moving. So the biggest difficulty, I think, with people today is the lack of moving. And so we want to sit on the couch. We want to just watch movies. We don't want to get active. And that, I think, really came into play during COVID. We isolated, we stopped being active, and people didn't want to be around people. And boy, did we find out that we are not made to do that. We're made to keep moving and interacting with other people. So I've been in healthcare for 30 years. I've done a lot of different things over the 30 years. Been in on the insurance side. I've been on the pharmaceutical and supplementation side, the exercise side, the workers' comp side, you name it. I've pretty much experienced it. And 8 years ago, decided to get back into practice. This will be my 6th practice. And I wanted to take all of what I've done over the last 30 years, all the different practitioners I've worked with, and bring us together. The one thing I know about healthcare today is as we mentioned, I don't really call it healthcare. I call it sick care because it's so siloed. Mm-hmm. And it's a requirement of the patient to figure out what it is they need. And they have to go search it. And people get lost. I have so many patients that come to see me and it says, I've lost hope. I can't feel better. I don't want to do anything. I physically hurt. And if they physically hurt, then they can't become active. If they can't become active, they can't change their mindset. They can't lose weight. They don't want to eat right because all of those different things become one big issue. And you try to go to this doctor, to that doctor, to this coach, to that coach, and there's no symbiosis. There's no gathering of that information for that individual to get the best out of it. So we are doing that in our clinic now here in Reno, Nevada. I'm the chiropractor, the primary doctor in the group. We have a couple chiropractors, but we also have nurse practitioners. And we deal with the pain. We get people moving. We have the adjusting, which is putting movement back into the joints. We have what's called deep tissue laser. It's been around for 50 years, but we just started using it on humans about 10 years ago. It's been used on animals. Vets have been using it. It's phenomenal. We just had a patient come in today with knee pain that she's had for 6 months. We did the laser. Today's Thursday. We did the laser on Monday. She goes, the pain's gone after one laser. This is like Star Trek type stuff. It's crazy how well this works. There's another thing called shock waves. So we're learning all these technologies to get the body to heal faster, do decompression, which helps ligament construction. And then, of course, we have massage therapists that work with the muscles and lymphatic system. And then our nurse practitioner working on hormone balancing. Because there's, we know about menopause, but do people know about andropause, which is male menopause, and the dropping of testosterone in men and what that does to men's physical body, what it does to their mental acuity, their cardiovascular health, all stems from the lack of testosterone. And so we deal with that. And then, proper perspective on eating and food and how much food has become such an emotional exchange. So we have therapists here. We have psychiatrists and a therapist dealing with the in between the two ears. That is the biggest reason why people can't lose weight. So you can show them exercises, you can get them on a nutrition plan, but they self-sabotage. They don't have the right coping skills. So I get 200-300 pound patients that say my knee and my ankle hurts. And I'm like, I can work on those, but if you don't lose 150 pounds, you're going to destroy those. And then they're like, well, what are you going to do as a chiropractor? So that's really what's driven me to be able to have everybody under one roof, to be able to say, okay, you're starting to feel better. Now it's time to start walking. Now it's time to start working on that nutrition. How you prep for your foods. How do you deal with that emotional eating? How do we make sure your testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and your thyroid, your diabetes, all of that is under control? And, for an individual to figure all this out, well, I'm going to go to this doctor today to do this, and I'm going to go to that doctor to do that. People have no clue. And because of the way our system is established, like I said, we're very siloed. You got your gastroenterologist, you got your cardiologist, you got your internist, but nobody is the quarterback anymore. That used to be the general practitioner. Now the general practitioner is just seeing patient after patient after patient after patient. They can't establish that rapport. And so there's a real gap. There's a real void of that type of practice. It doesn't exist. And, we're hoping that we can provide that. And then when the time comes, I had a patient that we tried to treat for 2 weeks, got an MRI. She's got a herniated disc that needs surgery. So I sent her to the doctor we work with that's a neurosurgeon. But that's 1 out of 50. The majority of people, we get in and out the door, doing better, getting stronger, coming back for preventative health. And then we're just dealing with the ones that kind of get lost in the system. If I hadn't got involved with a gal with the herniated disc, she'd probably still be waiting for somebody to schedule her, not just be prepared to get the surgery this week after a week starting last week. She'd still be waiting to get an appointment. So there's nobody really running that in our healthcare. And that's why, again, I come back, it's sick care. You go to the ER, you go to the urgent care, you deal with the sick issue, but you never get to why are you sick to begin with. And when COVID hit, I wasn't afraid of it. Most of my patients that I work with aren't afraid of it because I got them on vitamin C. I got them on detox diets. I've got them exercising. I got them in the right mental state that their immune systems are strong enough to handle that. If they have comorbidities, we know how to deal with those. And so I was listening to something today on the radio, how our high schoolers have so many comorbidities now, so many diseases and illnesses because of the lack of proper nutrition and the lack of physical activity. So it's situations like this, podcasts like this, for people to start actually listening and to get an opportunity to say, I need to search that out. So that's one of the things I get asked. Okay, you're in Reno, Nevada. I can't come and see you. What I say is find somebody that's integrated with all different aspects of health. If you know you got a cold or you got an infection, go to your GP. But if you're looking to improve your overall health, then get some groups that are integrated on nutrition and hormone balancing and pain management and working with your muscle and your joints and your ligaments and your tendons so that you can maintain. I mean, I've had professional runners come in here that couldn't run anymore. and we've done laser and they're back to running 120 miles a week. I'm like, you're crazy, but I'll support you. That kind of thing. Boxers, semi-pro football players, all these different people that are like, I can't do this anymore. And we treat them and they're like, I can do this some more. And if I can keep somebody from surgery for 3, 5, 10 years, that much better. 10 years from now, the type of surgery you're going to need is very small compared to today. So that's our goal, is to really help educate, get patients into the right place that they need to be, so that they can actually live an active life. That's the whole point behind this. It's not to sit in front of a TV and veg out. And so I'm really excited about what we're doing. Like I said, there's not a lot of people out there that get this. They're very myopic and, this is all I do. And that's fine. I tell people all the time, if I have a compound fracture and I see a bone sticking out of my leg, I ain't going to my chiropractor. I'm heading to the ER. Give me drugs and surgery right away. There's a place for all of this, but I think unfortunately we in this allopathic environment have not done a very good job with, you need to be part of a group that's there to help you and coach you through your health needs. And then when you need urgent care, you need surgery, you can be directed at that time. So that's where we're coming from.
Well, thank you for that whole, that's pretty intense stuff. I mean, that's like a few hours of a show that we can, break down.
Yeah, I throw it out there.
I know it's all there, but you hit so many valid points with so many powerful things that I think for our audiences, it's an eye opener, because you're right. And I still want to go and define the chiropractic work itself, but you've done a lot of things, and because you've experienced different angles from whether the insurance, to your point, from the workers' comp and all this stuff, you see like the injuries, this, that, the other, and your practice itself. But what you did is something very smart, genius, and very, very worth the investment, which is you looked at the root causes of what actually the end result is pain, and obviously you can fix that part by manipulating the spine. But what gets you there? To your point, you gave the example of someone with overweight. Well, you can fix that. You do a laser, yeah, it's temporary, but the weight is not going to go. That problem is going to persist, and it's the end of it.
Right.
And the person is never going to be happier, right? However, if you can deal with all the circumstances and things that can make that person remove all those initiating factors, then you're done. Right. And so you did that. So by bringing those multidiscipline services within your practice, and you integrated all these things. To your point, you need to fix the everything is in the mind, right? Yes. It starts with the mind. The mind is powerful. If you can't change their mindset, nothing else is going to happen. If you can't get them to start believing in themselves and maybe taking those steps and taking the necessary making the changes in their lifestyle, that's a big deal.
Well, one of the things that I really like to address is what happens in the physical, happens in the spiritual and in the mental.
Love it.
And so people project through their mouth, through their mind, through their eyes, what it is they are and what they want to become. And that negative talk, Tony Robbins talks about it all the time. All of the coaches, motivational coaches talk about that. If you can't control this part and you keep self-sabotaging, keep telling yourself, this is who I am versus what you really could be, we have to address that too. And that doesn't get addressed. And the therapist that we have in the practice, he goes, I would never encounter these people because they don't think they need this. People that think that, those people that are really crazy need a therapist. All of us have this inner talking that we have to learn how to deal with. And I talked to a couple patients, you got to put the little monkeys back in the cage.
I love that.
And let the gorilla, that is the one that's the big part, saying, knock it off, let's stay focused, and put the monkeys back in the cage. Or chasing the squirrels, however you want to do it. There's a squirrel, and that lack of focus and concentration. So I just wanted to really bring back to that point of mental health. And I think we all know that we have a major mental health issue in this country. and it's not being looked at all, in particular our young kids. And it's a nutritional thing. So I know you want to get into some specifics, but I like to get into a couple topics that I'm really passionate about. One is hormones,
Sure.
because even our therapist said, if we could have balanced people's hormones, how much less they would have had mental issues. And it was like, yeah, he goes, hundreds and hundreds of my clients probably would have improved significantly if we would have balanced those out. Because all you have to do is talk to your wife or your girlfriend during that period of that month, and those emotions are all over the place, and that's normal. But what happens when it becomes an abnormal fluctuation of hormones? That's number one. The second one, and very few people know about this, is nitric oxide. I don't know if you've come across this in any of your other conversations. So nitric oxide was studied back in the 90s, and the authors of the study won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1998. We are nitric oxide deficient. We all know about vitamin C and vitamin E and vitamin B12 and vitamin D, but nitric oxide affects the way our blood vessels work. And because of our environment now, the lack of proper nutrition, the lack of how we grow our vegetables and fruits, the over farming, the lack of allowing the earth to rest in between different crops, all of that is affecting how much nitrites get into our food. So we are no longer absorbing these. And by the time we're 45, naturally, our nitric oxide drops by about 65%. By the time we're 65, it's 15%. And if you don't have that nitric oxide, your arteries can't dilate and constrict. And there's a cell inside called the epithelial cell inside your artery that releases that nitric oxide and keeps the artery slick, not sticky. And so nobody knows about this. And the majority of people that we're testing have no nitric oxide in their system. So their arteries, having all these different weird blood pressure issues, the arteries can't vasoconstrict and dilate to change with our movement. So everybody had these elevated heart rates. My 16-year-old daughter I tested, she was completely white, had no signal of nitric oxide in her system, and she has blood flow issues. They call it POTS. And now I'm realizing it's because you're not getting nitric oxide, not only because of the lack of food, but all the electronics we have. The Wi-Fi, the 5G, all of this stuff is oxidizing all of our electrolytes, all the chemicals in our body, all of that is getting affected. So if anybody wants to learn about nitric oxide, they can contact me up on my website, but it's a huge deal. And in 1998, they said all cardiologists need to be providing this to their patients. And you talk to a cardiologist, they know nothing about it. So that's a real passion of mine. So I had to get that one out there. And same thing with peripheral neuropathy, which is another issue because of blood flow. And so it's not chiropractic oriented, but I deal with a lot of blood flow issues and a lot of neurologic issues as a chiropractor. So this is something I always like to get out when I'm talking because nobody's talking about it. So.
No, doctor, I appreciate it. As a matter of fact, as you and I, we talked earlier, your mission is to educate, and same, we align with that. And to your point, no one actually have, in my, I don't know, almost 3 years now, I have not had one discussion, especially about the nitric, oxides. That's it, right?
Yep, nitric oxide.
Yeah. So
everybody thinks about the nitric tablet for angina. This is something totally different.
Well, again, but you're right. I mean, you hit on. By the way, I would relate to you as far as I have a 16 and a 17-year-old, teenagers, and I joke with them all the time. Like your food is completely malnourished. There is nothing in it. I mean, yep. they don't have, like my son is anti-vitamins or anything with minerals or vitamins. No fruits, no vegetables,
right?
Nothing. Just carbs and sugar. Carbs. So sugar is everything else, and or maybe some meats. And I tell him, like, you don't feel it now, but the impact, you're not going to see it. But in years to come, you're going to have a problem.
Well, they're saying our teenagers are the most obese and the most diabetic ever.
I agree. Yeah. I mean,
and and we're seeing that every patient we come into is borderline diabetic, and diabetes destroys your body. And it's a disease we're doing to ourselves. We're killing ourselves.
It's amazing, but you're right. Like 2 years ago, we had actually two years ago exactly. We went to do a physical, and my son was already pre-diabetic.
Yeah,
And I'm like, how the hell did that happen? But I understand the junk he eats, all the stuff, and he's got no real nutrients in his body. And
Yep.
I'm like, dude, you got to do something about it. We got him into the physical aspect, so he got into basketball and stuff. So he slimmed down, so he's actually done better. But nutritionally, speaking, he's still negative. I mean, like my daughter on the flip side, she eats everything, so she's good. She's picky, but she's good. But he is completely, like, I'm telling you, zero. Like God, again, I say God, but some people believe or don't believe. Not the topic. But the fact of the matter is, call it nature, whatever. It has certain things for us that are made for us to sustain and live. And the fruits, the vegetables, the minerals that are out there for us to give us. I mean, in religion, we believe that we're from dirt or earth. We were made from it, right? Well, the analogy to it is the foods, and everything is coming from the ground, right? So whatever we take comes from that. But if you're not taking any of it, you are missing it, and therefore something in your body is missing. If you don't have iron, if you don't have this, it's just, there is nothing that we're not taking in that is going to be not missed. It will be missed. If it's out there in nature, it's probably for us. If it's in the food, a category, it should be for us, and we can use
100%.
it. But unfortunately, to your point, the culture, I make it a joke with my kids, like, by the time you guys are at my age, the restaurant business is going to close out, because you'll have five items on the menu: burgers, nuggets, fries, and I don't know, hot dogs or whatever, pizza. So that's it. I mean, there's nothing else.
Right.
But those are, I'm not saying that they could be bad, good, depends on how they're made. But they're not giving you your full spectrum of nutrition, and even diabetes. I mean, you said it. It's something that we can't control technically. We
Absolutely.
can prevent it. It's also the intake. I mean, everything we eat has high concentration of sugar and sodium right now.
Mm-hmm.
And kids specifically, Sour Patch, this, that, the other. I mean, you name it. Every candy out there has like thousands of grams of sugar that they ingest on a daily basis. Like I had a friend who was actually a doctor. He passed on. But one thing he had told me one day, because my mom is diabetic, and he was explaining to me, he made it so simple. He said, your body is designed with you to live for whatever span you're going to live. And everything, any organ that you have is going to have a certain function. You abuse any of those functions, it's going to go before its due time. The pancreas, generates and secretes the actual insulin. And if you actually abuse it early on, and you suck up all the energy in that thing, well, guess what? It's not going to be functional for the longest term, just like a car, right? If you abuse the vehicle, and it's not going to last you long, it might last to someone for 20 years. It might last 2 months with someone that doesn't take care of it. It's the same concept. So from that point, I understood the concept of what we have. Our bodies are functional, and we need to give them what we need to give them the proper way. But not only physically, also mentally. That's the other part, which I love what you said. This is everything else. It tells everything how to function.
Right.
Sorry.
It's interesting because, we're talking about our bodies need certain things. We're a closed system. What we put in our bodies is what our bodies are going to use. You can't just absorb it from the air. So you've got to understand that what you're made of and what your body needs in order to function. It's amazing to me that we just don't die with the current system the foods that we eat, because the body is going to eventually say, I don't have enough supply of this. We're going to stop working because I don't have enough of it. If you look at our world today, and we keep talking about, oh, you're not going to get this item for another 5 to 6 weeks because we have a supply chain issue. What do you think our bodies are thinking? When are you going to deliver some nutrients to me? I'm going to have a supply chain issue here pretty soon, and that's why people, they can't gain weight, or they're not very strong, or they're sleeping all the time, whatever their condition is. And unfortunately for kids, eventually it catches up to them a lot sooner than it should.
Well, doctor, again, I think you and I just probably about the same age, and we played enough outdoors.
Yep.
Like I tell my kids, when I was I was actually spending 12 hours. If I was not in school or in the summer or holidays, I'm actually not anywhere close to the house. I'm playing something out there. I'm running, I'm skateboarding, I'm playing,
right.
Whatever I'm doing, it is sweaty. I am actually, burning calories. I'm skinny,
100%.
They sit, couch potatoes, from the screens for hours, and then they crash, and then they just shove food quickly. They're not even taking the time to enjoy it. It's amazing. And then you have all these drinks, and everything is just sugar based. And by the way, I would say we have to blame ourselves too as parents. And sorry,
Sure.
parents, don't take this the wrong way, but we buy these things. I sometimes question myself, like I've cut a lot of stuff from my house, and my son every now and then says, "Dad, we got to go food shop." I was like, "Well, we have food." Not that food. Not that food, because we have the good stuff. No, I want the other stuff. We want the chips and and I try to minimize those in my house. But
you have to.
But if we don't control it, it's what it is. But we keep this, and sometimes you walk around and you see people, and you can see family and sometimes overweight, whatever the case may be. But you can tell that the diet piece is missing, or the activity piece is missing. And also, we've gone into society where it's okay. You can't tell people off. You can't, their kids have to do what they want. You can't force them to do something. So now you have that other aspect, and therefore you almost encouraging some behavior, and therefore
enabling it.
Enabling, exactly. So what happens now is, like, you train these people for years to do that. At school, they do the same. They can't talk to them. You can't do this. Even sometimes I ask the question, "What do you do on PT?" Well, I mean, physical education. P. What do you do? We just sit around. We go to the park and sit. Literally, I'm like, really? Dude, when we had it back in the days, I'm actually playing on that court. We're playing a game, 2 games, 3 games, whatever that hour is, we're really running. And so it's just different dynamics. And you're right, the food, the nutrition. I mean, you look at other foods or other school systems, for example, around the world. Their nutrition factor is completely different from what they serve us. In Japan, forget it. In Germany, some of these countries, and I'm just quoting countries that are about equal in terms of sophistication and
right.
being up there. I'm not talking about third world countries. That's a whole different ball game.
That's a whole different thing.
Exactly. But the fact of the matter, we think we're hot and we are like always ahead of the game, but we're not in some of these areas, and it is impacting the to your point, younger folks with sicker stuff. We see, people are more open to diseases now than they ever were. And some people may disagree with that, statement, like, oh, medicine is much more, sophisticated. Medicine, yes, we can probably solve these problems, but we just have a lot more of them,
Well, and it's a lot of it's self-generated. I mean, we're creating these problems ourselves. It's an interesting thing, because here you and I are talking about health, and nobody talked about it 20, 30 years ago. They didn't really talk about it. I mean, people smoked and thought that was okay. And so now we're talking about it. I think there's more people that are saying we need to do these things. And so if we give our kids time and exposure to what is right, eventually I think it can turn around. I mean, I have that conversation with my 16-year-old. She does jujitsu. She wants to exercise more. She wants to ride horses. She wants to do all these activities, and she's improving how she eats, and she takes her nitric oxide, and she does all of these things. So I think the kids will eventually grasp the concept, as long as we don't hit them over the head with it. We've got to, and we got to live by example. I mean, we can't be over there stuffing a bunch of stuff in our mouths and say, don't do that, and so that's a huge one. But what I'd like to see happen in our society is that we start thinking about these issues before we're 250, 200, 320 pounds, and we've destroyed our joints, and we stretched out our skin, and we have to go through all these procedures. Let's try to deal with this sooner than later. And that's that's why we do what we do, right? We have to get the word out.
It is, and first of all, it's great. It's a great feeling to actually be able to do this and hopefully touch lives. And I don't know how many people we touch on a regular basis, but these shows will go on in the air for eternity once they're in the internet, and hopefully over time, many people will actually see them and take some value from it. But you're right. You mentioned something powerful earlier about going back to that early to the traditional way of doing medicine, where preventative is there. You're not just when you have a sickness or disease, then you deal with it. It's all about being ahead of the game. You're right. If you have a bone that's cracked out and sticking out of your skin, that's different. You got to go to the ER and do something about it. But you want to go to your primary doctor. You want to make sure you have all the preventative measures and things. You talked about hormonal stuff. I mean, we're humans. All humans have different types of hormones, male or female equally. They have their own formats, and it affects them differently. It manipulates a lot of things in our, how we behave. And you're right, by age, that's the other thing. We have, age groups, sometimes at early on, and I would say myself back in the days, I didn't think certain things would happen to me the way they do today. Like the way you feel, like every decade that goes by, your joints are not the same. You start feeling new types of pains, right?
That's right.
What the hell just happened, right?
I just woke up. Why am I hurting?
Yeah, it's true. I have to say this happened to me. Like literally, I turned 50. And like the pain that I'm experiencing, like I can't lift my arm, like I had the what I call this frozen shoulder. I skateboarded all my life. I fell. I couldn't, my arm was numb for 6 months. I didn't break it. And it just like my joints were actually completely in pain. So I'm like, what the hell? Your knees are hurting.
Right.
Your weight is not actually, you're managing it, but still, if I stop, working out and I just eat one extra meal, forget about it.
That's right.
So you got to watch your nutrition. You want to, how much, you're taking in, how many meals you have, when you eat, what kind of exercise you do. It changes when you're 20s and the 30s. You're like, I got this. I rule the world. And by the way, this is for all of us. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you are in early ages, well, know that if you live long, you want to keep that body running with you correctly. You don't want to live long without your body. Yeah.
Well, when we're young, we think we're invincible.
That's right. Listen, guilty, right? We thought that at a certain point. I have to say personally, I mean, I told you I experienced chiropractic, services because of a back injury about 20 plus years back. I used to do Taekwondo at the time, and we were just doing some spin fly kick, and I got smashed in the back, and something snapped, and it was not fun. So I had to actually get a lot of work done. I mean, it was a couple of months of therapy and a lot of popping and manipulating. But it was good. I have to say that it felt so good. It's not even funny. And honestly, I've never had any problems after that, but I've been more careful. Eventually I stopped that, and I did different types of martial arts, jiu-jitsu and some other stuff. But it's a different angle, a different way of, working with your body. So I changed that. But the work you guys do, it's very important. I mean, you ultimately treat the problem. But you took it to the point where you not only treat the problem, but now you prevent from the problem from happening or recurring by addressing all the other issues that brought us to that point in the first place, and that's a big deal.
I have a saying in my practice: I want to see 250 patients a week, just not the same 250 patients.
I love it.
Because I want patients. There's this mentality that once you go see a chiropractor, you got to see him for the rest of your life. And then people will say, well, do I have to keep coming back and seeing you? And I said, no, you got to eat right. You got to exercise. You got to get enough sleep. You got to reduce your stress. You got to take a mental break. And then you only need to see me every 4 to 6 weeks. Or you cannot do any of those, wait 3 or 4 months, and you still have to see me 3 times a week for a month to 2 months because you haven't prevented it. You haven't taken care of yourself. So now you have to pay a professional to do it. So we can do a lot more for ourselves to prevent the need of having a practitioner do it if we are taking responsibility for our own health. And I tell patients all the time, it's not my responsibility to have you show up. You show up, you want to be engaged, you want to take responsibility, I'm right there with you. You don't want to take responsibility. I remember we have this weight loss program, and we have this machine that'll actually shrink fat cells. And we had this one patient come in for her first procedure. She's lost like 3 or 4 inches off her midsection. And we said, okay, we need to do this 10 times over the next 3 to 4 weeks. But this is how you got to do for your diet. Right after you do this, you got to exercise because the triglycerides are in your bloodstream. You got to get rid of those to keep the fat cells shrunk. Well, I'm not giving up my hamburgers. Like, then why are you here? Why are you wasting my time and your money? If you're not going to participate and take responsibility for your health, I can't help you. And I have no problems telling that to people. You've got to be the one, you got to be your own advocate. You got to take care of yourself. I'm not your babysitter. I'm here to help you as a professional, lead you in the right direction, and help you when you fall, because I know that's going to happen. But if you acknowledge, I had a patient just come in today. I know, doctor, I really screwed up. I went up on the roof and strained my back. I shouldn't have gone on the roof. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but can you fix me? Of course I can fix it. You do it again, I'll fix you, but I'm still going to charge you. You're going to still have to pay me to keep fixing you, or you can stop doing that stupid thing that you're doing. So
it is. I mean, listen, we do put ourselves into sometimes harm's way, and but you're right. Some people have the smarts to kind of figure it out that, I learned my lesson and I'm not going back. And some people, they just keep up. But you said earlier, again, we talked about the brain and the mind, the gorilla. You can't, if someone's not going to change, nobody can change you except you. Right. We can expose people to as much stuff. We can't make people happy unless they want to be happy. You can't make people healthy unless they want to be healthy. But you do at least allude to it. You do at least push them and maybe, spark something there to get them just to think about it. And that's great because like to your point, some other places they go, they get the service, have a good day, sayonara, bye-bye. But in your case, at least you give them, hey, do you want to come see me? I'd love to see you, and I'm going to charge you. That's good money for me. But the fact is, you want to be healthy. Do you want to have the same problem happening over and over? And there's a point also that your body may not be fixable the same way because you can do beyond damage, right? So
there's times, yeah,
exactly. So I mean, the body is a body, and it's malleable. It can heal itself for to a degree.
That's the amazing thing about the body is it can heal.
It can.
If you give it the materials and the treatment to do it, it can heal. I've seen amazing things happen with people that you just would think they're not going to get any better.
That's right.
And they did.
But because they do commit fully. It's
right.
mind, body, spirit, as you said, the whole works. And also they pay attention and they follow through, like everything else. It's like you want to be successful. This is success in your health. You got to follow through. You take action and you follow through. You don't want it? Well, Too bad. It's that. You mentioned something earlier about technology also, which was great to hear because, well, great in a way and sad in another, because the fact is, to your point, it's only being used recently as opposed to being used on animals for years.
Yeah, laser.
We love our animals, but the vets, I figured it out and it's working. I mean, their joints and muscle, whatever, they're the same.
Well, they were experimenting on the animals.
I thought it was actually an actual.
That's why the animals got it first. So when they started playing with lasers and they were doing all these different things with lasers, they said, what happens if we shoot laser into live tissue? So they started doing it to animals. They started using different frequencies of laser into animals, and they started realizing the animals were starting to heal. They didn't understand what was actually happening, but you can go on YouTube and you'll see laser after laser after laser done on animals, instantaneous repair. There was a horse that they did everything, injections, anti-inflammatories, all of this. They were ready to put the horse down. 4 or 5 lasers into it, horse started walking properly. By the 11th one, 12th one, he would have never known that his knee joint was shot. 2 years later, he was running like a young stallion. He was like 18, 20 years old. So that's what they were studying. And then for them to create the enough wattage, enough power to really use on humans took a while. My first one was a 9-watt laser. The one I have now is 40 watts. And it'll penetrate all the way into the bone. We've had people in here with fractured feet And within 2 to 3 days, the pain's gone, the fracture's healing. We had somebody that had spinal fractures, and he had a full cast around his chest, a support that he'd have to tie. He would take it off when he came and see me, and we'd laser him. He'd go back after about 2 or 3 weeks, went back to his surgeon, and they took x-rays. He goes, "What are you doing? The healing that's happening to your back, I've never seen before." And he says, "I'm doing laser." And so it's an amazing experience, but like I said, it's been around now for 50 years. And again, nobody knows about it. But you look at high school pro or college pro teams, they're using it like crazy. So it's using technology. It's understanding what we can do. Another one is I mentioned was peripheral neuropathy. It's what folks get in their feet and their hands when the capillaries start to collapse, and the nerves start dying. And with diabetic patients, they start getting ulcers. But people with surgeries, with chemotherapy, they can also get this. And it's the shutdown of the arteries, and then the nerves start dying. Well, typically there was nothing that the allopathic community could do for it. They did, gabapentin and Lyrica to cover up the dying of the nerve so you couldn't feel it. But we're using laser therapy. We're using these boots that produce a similar frequency, but it's a longer period of time that these people take home. We're putting them on nitric oxide. We're putting them on a product to help the outer lining of the nerves. And we're probably close to 200 patients in the last 4 years. Only one has not improved. And she stopped because it started becoming painful. And I told her, your nerves are going to wake up. You're going to start feeling things again. We'll help you manage that. But she couldn't get that into her head that she had to stop the pain. So it's an amazing form of care and form of treatment. So when we start understanding that there are things there that we can help the body heal, that's what we're here to do. Allow the body to do the work. And that's one of the amazing things in regards to technology I love to see.
Well, again, I mean, this is technology, like you said, that's been around, that's been tested, and certainly now it's becoming more, but not a lot of people hear about it or know about it. Right. Well, here's the good news. A lot of people are going to hear about it now. We're pushing this out there, and it's worldwide. Right. So I hope that people will start investigating and doing the research themselves and maybe inquiring about this. And yes. But so just to understand the actual, I guess, how it works. I mean, so basically it stimulates rather the nerve endings or the bones. How does that work more or less? I mean,
okay. So the way I like to, it's called photobiomodulation. Nice. That's the name of what the laser does. And the easiest way to explain it is, what does a tree do? It has the leaves, and when the sun comes down, it absorbs the ultraviolet radiation, the laser of the sun, into those leaves. We can't do that because of our skin. The dermis is too thick. So they were able to develop a high frequency laser, real specific. It sounds a little Star Trek-y, but it's photons that are actually getting penetrated into the cell. And when those photons get penetrated into the cell, it increases your blood flow. So it speeds it up. Inflammation, where people get confused about inflammation is just blood flow. That's all it is. Increased blood flow is inflammation. When you sprain your ankle and it swells up, that's inflammation. Our body naturally has inflammation. It has to. That's how we get repaired. When you cut your wound or cut your skin and that wound appears, that's inflammation. What you see, the redness, all that's inflammation. Our problem is we get overinflamed. It's a traffic jam. So if you think about cars on a freeway in that traffic jam, and there's a wreck in the middle of that traffic jam, you got all of those blood vessels around that traffic jam. None of the ambulances can come there to take care of what's wrong with those people in the middle of that traffic jam. So that's what inflammation does. It just keeps coming into that tissue. So the laser helps reduce that traffic and speed everything up. It increases human growth hormone. It increases stem cell growth in that area. And the one thing that I'd rather have a broken bone than have a ripped ligament, because broken bone gets blood. It's very open. Ligaments are like the steel rods of a bridge. That's our ligaments. That's our tendons. That's our cartilage. It's what we call avascular. Blood can't get into those. It has to absorb it through osmosis. The nutrients go through it very slow. Well, the laser speeds that process up. So I can repair ligament and tendon and cartilage a lot faster. And then the last thing that the lasers do is in each one of our cells, there's what's called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is our little energy plant in each one of our cells. And that's what allows for proper cell division, the working of that particular cell to do whatever it's doing. Where that mitochondria, when those photons go in, it takes those photons like a fuel boost, and it creates ATP. It creates energy. So not only does it do all of this increase in activity, it allows the cells to produce and function better. So when I do stuff like this last patient, one laser, she goes, I have had no pain in 3 days. That's what it's doing. It's hyper activating that tissue in a normal, non-surgical, non-drug, normal physiological way. And it's pretty exciting to watch and see people improve. Scar tissue, it blows my mind every time I see patients come in and like, I can't believe what it's doing.
Well, I'm just hearing about it. I'm just like, speechless, because it is. Cheap on Star Trek, big time. Photons and laser beams,
Exactly.
But it's pure science, and you're right.
It is.
The cells. We are, as much as we think we are a physical or material body, we have a lot of energy. Everything is electric, and all these things kind of work. But You're right. The speed up process is important to realize. Now, someone can say, well, is there any side effect to this? Can this be harmful to any? It's a laser.
That's the exciting thing. There's no side effects to it, except if you've taken like a steroid, cortisone. We can't do it over that because cortisone's already an anti-inflammatory, and we can just flare up the situation. If they've had cancer, we got to stay away from cancer. Because again, it's speeding up metabolism. So that's cancer, speeding up metabolism. Electronics, heart pacemakers, stuff like that. But if you've had a hip replacement or knee replacement, you can do it in joints like that. So it's mostly a physiological thing we got to watch out for. But other than that, there's really no side effects to it. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So it's important to know like the history of a patient, before, you can proceed with that, and ultimately they
absolutely. We got to get
like everything else.
And we got to go over all of this, because the change for me, because you've kind of talked about what do I do as a chiropractor, my focus is to put movement into a joint. If you can't move, that affects everything. So bones don't go out of place. Discs don't go out. I always laugh at patients when they say my disc went out. And I said, where did it go, to a movie and dinner? Where did it go out? Did it go out on a date? And I said, no, if you ever worked on a cadaver, if you actually got in there and saw what that disc looked like, it's not going anywhere. You don't get pinched nerves. People say, I got a pinched nerve. I said, well, let's take you to the ER. Because if you saw where that nerve was going through this little tiny piece of hair, going through this big opening like that, if that's pinched, you broke something. So there's no such thing as a pinched nerve. What you get is inflamed nerves, because the joint around there is pissed off because you slept like this on the couch for 8 hours. It's things that we do to ourselves that irritate our body, and our body's telling us, hey, dummy, you better pay attention to what you just did to your neck and take care of it. So that's what I do. I put movement back into the joint. But what if the joint's been damaged? Like in a car accident, we do a lot of motor vehicle accidents. I've got to get motion back in the joint, but I have to heal the tissue. So I got to heal the tissue with the laser. Then I got to strengthen the tissue, the ligaments, tendons, with pulling on that material, getting that collagen to lay straight, not like this, creating scar tissue. And then I got to get people exercising, building up the muscles, strengthening up the ligaments, strengthening up the bones. Planks, push-ups, sit-ups, kettlebells, a lot of body weight stuff. I don't want you doing clean and jerks and deadlifts and stuff on your back, destroy your joints. Let's do stuff to really, and you You're not a big power lifter. You're not going to the Olympics. Don't try it. CrossFit. You're going to screw yourself up and come and see me more. So that's my perspective. There's a step to this, and it's not going and getting adjusted 3 times a week for the next 3 months. That's great for mobility, but there's so much more to our body that has to be addressed. So that's what we do.
I love it. I mean, I think if anyone is watching or listening right now, they'll probably be like, "Wow, you just explained the whole anatomy of how the body works and heals, in about 10, maybe like 2 minutes." But you know what? I mean, making it very easy and it's dummied down. But I think to your point, I mean, it's as clear, to me and to anybody
and it's clear to my patients. They understand what I'm talking about. And again, back here, right? I'm visualizing. I have to keep moving. I can't sit like this for 5 hours in front of a computer. I got to do my pelvic tilts. I got to get up and I got to go walk. I did that before this. I said, I got to get out of this office. I'm going to be sitting down for an hour. I got to go for a walk. Even though it's 100 degrees outside, I got to go outside. We've got to stay active. That's why we're Active Life, a better life through motion. That's our motto. And that's what we do. That's what we try to get into people's mindset. Stay moving. You can't stay sedentary. It doesn't work.
Love it. Well, we're not supposed to. I mean, humans were not created just to be, sitting and attached to a fixture.
We were nomads. We were always walking.
Or always working outdoors. It's always been
always working outdoors. Exactly. We weren't meant to do what we do today. So
I mean, we got lazy.
Well, I don't know if you've heard this, but it's so funny because I tell people, okay, we're getting to that phase where you got to start working out. Why work out? I say, you do? Uh-huh. Yeah, I do this all day for 8 hours. I'm like, okay, that's a workout? They go, yeah. I said, okay, let me ask you this. A football player, he spends 45 minutes total on the field on Sunday as a professional football player. 45 minutes. That's his work. How much time do you think he spent preparing for that 45 minutes? And they're like, all week? For the last 10, 15 years? Exactly. How much do you prepare to do your job? Well, I don't. Exactly. So you wonder why you hurt. Why you go and you've done this sedentary job Monday through Friday and you go out and play all day basketball and you can't walk on Sunday. It's because you're not actually working out. Understand the purpose of working out is to get your body trained to withstand more, not less. And you can't do that in 8 hours. You do it in 30, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half increments where you're stressing out the body. You're making it build more fiber. So the next time you go and try to do it, you can do it easier. So unless you're doing that at work and you're doing 50 more stacks of pylons than you did the day before, you're not working out. And there's this strange concept that if I actually do any physical activity, that means I'm working out. And it's like, no, that is not working out.
Well, it's funny because I have that joke at home. My mom, she's an older lady, and recently, especially during the pandemic, she hasn't been going out walking a lot, so she's gained weight, and ultimately it became more difficult for her. So we have therapy and everything, and we were just joking with her. Mom's like, "Well, I'm working in the kitchen doing stuff." I was like, I do a lot more than that, and the weight's not gonna go. That's barely the calories you just took, in one bite. It's not working. You gotta do a lot more than just that. I mean, that's not enough. If you're not sweating it and you're not feeling everything, and the body is working, and you have at least an hour in, maybe half hour walk, whatever. But again.
So you got to tell your mom, okay, mom, when you wake up in the morning, we're going to do knee push-ups. We're going to do 3 sets of 10. We're going to do 15-second planks for three of those. And we're going to do push-ups. We're going to do a few wall squats.
Oh, boy.
Then you can tell. And once you get to 3 minutes, mom, on the planks, we're going to start kettlebells. Now you're working out.
Yeah, let's get the 30 seconds on a plank, and then we can see about 3.
That's what I tell patients. I'll give you a workout. Let's go.
That's a super workout.
It's simple though. It's so simple. Roll off your bed right onto the floor and start planking.
But you know what? You're right. That's body resistance, and believe me, it's the oldest. When I did martial arts, when I was younger, there was no weights, there was nothing. You purely
The
work your
plank.
body with planks and push-ups and
Burpees.
abs, and that's it. It was all your body. It's your body's weight and gravity.
Yeah.
Use those, and the rest was history. You know? I
we
mean,
had,
yeah.
we had a young man in my martial arts school. He planked for 2.5 hours. He watched a movie.
Talking about
He was
core, that
10, 11 years old. He had no weight. I mean, he was probably 90 pounds. You know, I had 240 on that kid. I was lucky I made three minutes. I was already shaking at 3 minutes at my weight.
Well, doctor, you know, it's funny because leg workout, right? So in karate,
Right.
the black belt test, you know, when I took it, this was like I was 18, and part of it, you do an hour and a half of horse stance.
Oh yeah.
You have to stay on a still horse stand position for an hour and a half. Literally at the end of the hour and a half, I mean, first of all, the first 10 minutes, to your point, everything is shaking. Then eventually it gets stabilized and you just stay there. Obviously, it takes a lot of practice to get there. I mean, you do half hour. I used to watch movies and do all the stuff and just sit there for hours until I got prepared for it. But when we did that, people had, you know, I mean, everybody, the floor was drenched with sweat. I mean, it was amazing. But talking about core, like muscle and position and working those legs, I mean, that was better than any machine you can push on. Could
you imagine doing that right now? After about 10 minutes, we'd start having a Charlie horse in our hamstring, dying from trying to get rid of that hamstring.
5 minutes, I'll be done. I still do some, you know, I mean, not an hour and a half. I mean, I think I can still go I can do an hour, a half hour still. But, you know, my kids, sometimes I get them to do it. They'll be like, I can't do it. It's like, you got to keep doing it, you know. But, you know, it's funny because you're right. It's not the same. Like talking about 50, like I mentioned earlier, I was standing and just my calf just popped. Poof. That's it. I dropped. That was it. I was like, it was funny. I mean, I was with my wife and I was like, "Can we show you how it's done?" And poof, and I fell on the ground. I was for a whole week. I was crippled. I couldn't walk.
I had done a bunch of workouts 1 week, and then I moved that weekend. Went and saw a buddy, and we were standing at a bar table and having a beer. And all of a sudden, both my hamstrings went into spasm. And I was kind of sitting I threw the bar table. I was trying to straighten out my legs while I was on the bar. And he goes, "What's wrong?" "My hamstrings are tightening up." And then every time I kind of move, they go again. I'm like, "Oh man, give me some hydration. I'm dying here."
Yeah. Some folks are listening to these guys like, what the hell's wrong with these two? Well, folks, we're just reminiscing about, you know, how we wish we could go back in time and change some things. But you know what? It is what it is. Your body gives you what you give it, what you invested in over the years. So,
right.
but, you know, with a lot of workout and stuff, sometimes you have damage that, you know, you have to maintain. And a lot of my friends had surgery and knee surgery and stuff, and I refused to do that. So I took all the measures to prevent, you know, the body to actually get to that point where I have to.
Smart.
Because again, I mean, I've seen them post surgery, they recover, but it's not always the same, and it isn't. It's just not the same mobility, and it's tough. Again, like
prevention is always better. Prevention is always better.
Yes, sir. Well, so doctor, I know we're just barely past almost the hour, but you did mention a couple of things that you have as services within your practice. One was massage therapist, and the other one was the beauty piece. So let's talk about that. How do you kind of integrate that?
So on the chiropractic side, you know, I'll work with a patient and I can get mobility in there into the joints, but they still have a lot of trigger points. And I can feel those trigger points. I'm like, you know, my 5-8 minute adjustment's not going to get this muscle to release. To understand what creates a trigger point, when you look at the mechanism of a muscle, it's like a corkscrew. So it does this motion, and that's what causes the contraction. Well, in between those two different mechanisms, there's calcium, potassium, magnesium. So they can come like this, and then all of a sudden, there's not enough nutrients there, or there's a damage, and it locks in place. That's what creates that round ball that you feel, that trigger point. Well, to break those up, a massage therapist has to go in there and physically break that muscle fiber. It's a mechanical mechanism that you're actually breaking up trying to get blood flow back in there so the nutrients, the electrolytes can get back into the muscle or allow them to relax again. So I can't do that just by adjusting. I can affect the physiology of it, but then when I get my massage therapist in there, he does true myofascial deep tissue massage. This is not your go to the hotel and have a nice little, oil massage. This is deep penetrating. Oh my God, I'm going to die massage.
I can feel that pain with those nuts.
Yeah, we talk about it right now. We got a wheelbarrow ready for you when we have to pour you into the car because you can't move. You got to hydrate. When I get a massage, I'm like, he'll say, well, why don't we do it Thursday morning? I said, I go home and sleep after my massage because it is so physical. So that's our type of massage. It's a medical deep tissue myofascial, and it's therapeutic. It's meant to serve a purpose. And one of the things we haven't talked about, one of the things we also do is infusions. Oh. So our biggest concern about people when they get a massage is hydrating, because our fat cells hold on to toxins. They do that to protect our organs. So the fat cells will absorb heavy metals, pesticides, whatever, too much caffeine, even alcohol. All of that can be wound up into a fat cell. Then you go have him do those muscle releases, and he's going over the fat cells. Guess what happens? All those toxins get dumped into your bloodstream. So you have to hydrate. And so we're looking at doing IV hydration so you have enough fluids to get rid of all those toxins, because we've had people get sick, start throwing up because they're releasing so many toxins. So that's the massage. So that is your full body. But now let's talk about the face. I mean, you can do all this work, you can feel better, but you're people smoking, drinking too much, not hydrating, too much sugar, caffeine, all of those affects the collagen, affects how your face presents to the world. And you start losing the proper fat in your face, you start wrinkling. I mean, I have people that are 10 years younger than me that look like they're 20 years older than me. They allow their collagen to be destroyed by the sun. They smoke too much and it destroys the collagen. So there's all these different factors. And fortunately, we know ways today to try to hone that down, try to help get rid of some of the wrinkles, some of the damage that we've done to our skin. And so let's say we do all these things and our physical body looks better, we're feeling more energized, but our face looks like it just went through hell. That's why I feel it's really important to have health done to the face. It's such a unique part of the full body approach, because that's what we find. I feel great. My body's doing better. I'm exercising, proper nutrition, but what do I do about the bags under my eyes? Mm-hmm. So that's why we've added that to what we do as well. So
is that like different, like Botox and maybe some other stuff, or it's totally different from the standards?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a legit question because that's what people know. I'm not a real advocate of Botox. People understood what Botox is. It's botulism. Botulism, eat it like with tomatoes or something spoiled that produces the botulism bacteria, it will kill you. Botulism destroys nerve endings and muscle cells. That's why when they shoot it into your forehead, it just collapses because you just destroyed the muscle and you can't contract that anymore because you've destroyed the muscle. You've killed it. And so doing temporarily, unless you keep doing it.
Got it.
And so I don't find that as a real strong way of helping that out. I like our laser. We do the deep tissue laser. The same effect that we do on the joints, we can do on the face. And then microdermabrasion. And then there's one thing called the Dracula procedure, which is a little, you actually prick the face using the tool. And it opens up the collagen around your face to grow and tighten back up so you don't have the wrinkles. And there's also another one called the Dracula formula, where you do what's called PRP, protein-rich platelets. Where you draw it out of your own blood, and then they shoot it into your face. That's another thing that you can do. So there's all kinds of techniques that we're learning to keep away from having to have everything lifted and cut and all of that. So, we try to do the most non-invasive forms, and just a good cleaning your face in the morning, putting on skin protection, just the basics can get you a long ways to improving how your face looks.
Well, Doc, thank you for breaking that out. I mean, I think I got a lot more than what I bargained for today. So you really gave me a lot more, and audiences today, a treat and explain a lot of things, and really at least open up, new things for the folks. I know that you're physically limited to Reno, I guess, Nevada, and
sure,
but
I've had people on podcasts contact me through our website, ask questions, and I love providing that information for people. I mean, what we do here locally is fantastic, but being able to educate people worldwide, I did a podcast in London, and I had people from there calling me about stuff. So it doesn't bother me at all. I love doing it.
Well, thank you for doing it, and certainly people, at least they know what to look for, whatever they are, and hopefully they can ask the right, with the smart way, and they have the informed, knowledge to really ask for the right things and or the right service. I mean, like, for example, now we know there's the laser piece where you can say, can you do this for me, as opposed to, going in not knowing. So it makes a difference. So folks,
sure.
You do have the opportunity to do this part and just listen to the show, watch it over and over if you need to take notes. But also I will have the actual website on the description of the show, so people can actually connect directly with you. And certainly please feel free to do so. And hey, hopefully you get something out of it. Doctor, listen, time flew, and I had a great time. And
same here.
I enjoyed every minute of it. I've learned a lot. So thank you so much for being with us, Doctor, and for giving us these beautiful.
Absolutely, look forward to doing it again with you. It was a pleasure.
Hey, listen, I'll hold you to it.
That sounds good. We'll get more topic specific next time.
We can have a series of those. Well, listen, thank you so much. And folks, thank you for being with us and for watching and listening in. And hopefully you'll find this very educational, informative, and make it, put it to good use. All right. That being said, I'm your host, Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New show, new day, new guest, new topic. Bye for now.